In this first episode of the Waboripedia Traditional Japanese Tattooing Community Member Spotlight, we'll be sitting down with Jordan. For over 7 years, Jordan has been documenting his traditional Japanese bodysuit journey. We'll be sitting down and talking about his tattoos, his journey, and just talking shop, talking Wabori. So without any further ado, let's start with Jordan. All right, Jordan, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time. For those who, there are many people who know you. There are many people who might not know you, but I think you're pretty famous within the Wabori / Horimono / Itazumi circles. You're the moderator of one of the most popular Horimono targeted subreddits, the Itazumi subreddit. You're a super supporter of a lot of projects within the Horimono Wabori community. Obviously, you're part of the Waboripedia family. That's why you're here. I love getting to talk with you, and so I want to just share with the wider world, what an awesome guy you are. And so, today we'll go through, maybe how you got started with Wabori. We'll walk through some of your tattoos. I don't know. We'll just talk shop and see where it takes us. But thank you so much for joining.
Oh yeah, John, thank you so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure to finally see you face to face. And as you said, I am an ardent supporter. If you release a book, I'm gonna buy it. It's a compulsion.
That's true. I talk with Jordan a lot, obviously offline, and there's a new book coming out. I don't even have to ask if he's buying it. I know he's buying it. It doesn't matter how expensive it is. Okay, I'm putting you on a spot right now, but usually it doesn't matter how expensive it is. He'll buy it. So it's
much to my wife's chagrin. I'll go in, but I can't help it. Part of it's about the support, right? But a part of it is just like an authentic love for, it's another way for me to engage with the community and with, tattooing in general, right? It's to, buy the books and, look at them. I don't even have time to read half of them, but, it's just, I like having them, it's a sort of way to collect tattoos without getting tattooed.
Yeah, I feel it. I think you start with one book, then you buy a second book, then before you know it, you're on your 10th book, and then you're like, I don't need any more books. Oh, but there's a new book, I need to get it.
Yeah,
and
I did that yesterday. It was like Jeff Goge, I think, is 12 Swords or whatever. He's out in San Diego. He's doing a periodical, and a friend hit me. I literally had just said to myself, no more books. And then somebody hit me up. He's like, hey, have you seen this yet? And I bought a subscription. Like instantly. That's
funny. That's funny.
No regrets.
Of course. But anyway, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of it. We'll get through, of course, we have some pre-scripted questions here. We'll also let the conversation flow and drift as it will, but let's just get started. So the first question I have for you is pretty simple. How did you discover and get started with Wabori / traditional Japanese tattooing?
So I started, I first came across it probably, I want to say like the mid 2000s. Obviously, I was aware of it, but in terms of like it, as a tattoo sort of culture and sort of like what it was in tattooing, I didn't really understand it, until probably the mid 2000s, I would say. And that came because I had started, I was just out of high school, or I was finishing high school around that time. And I was starting to research like my own tattoos. I knew I wanted to get tattooed. I had none. And I was like thinking about it. And I was just like, what do I want to get? And I started as you do, you come up with like all these different ideas. And I started like researching. I started seeing these really big pieces, right? And I want to say probably like the mid 2000s in tattooing as a whole was like sort of the like really like that boom of the custom tattoo, right? Like we had sort of gotten away from the flash, like flash tattoos in like the late 90s. And so like people I know some of like the OGs were doing it earlier than that, of course, like the custom tattooing thing. But I think widely it started to get adopted, at least in my view, around sort of that time. And so I was just looking at like with the custom. I was like, I don't want anything off the walls. I want a custom tattoo, custom that. And so I'm looking, researching, and I start coming across like there wasn't a lot on the internet at that time, right? Like it was kind of hard to find stuff, but I had come across two blogs. One was Munawari Minutes, which is by Crash, and he was a primary inspiration for me in actually my own blog, which I know we'll get to later. And then there was also Shad, who's Horitsuki Gage, who's a member of the Horitoshi family. He's from Belgium, I believe, and right now I think he's living and tattooing in Japan. But he had just a personal website that I had found with these amazing pictures on it, and I was just like, I was really like captivated by these like the idea that these tattoos, this culture was designed from its inception to cover huge parts of the body, right? A lot of, your flash tattoos are all sort of one-point collector style things that you can build into a sleeve or a suit or whatever, but like they're not really designed to be that. And here was this art form, these tattoos that were designed by their nature to be huge, and it just really captivated me.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I'll just say this just to start, but just listening to you, I can already feel your passion towards the craft. So it's awesome to hear. And by the way, I just started with the first awesome. I usually spurt a bunch of awesomes when I'm talking, but
yeah.
Anyway,
it's your,
that's awesome. But so that makes a lot of sense. And then for those listening, of course, some people will know, some might not. But obviously, there's multiple ways of actually doing the tattooing, right? There's the machine that most people are aware of, but then there's the more traditional method, the Tebori method, which is basically you glue or you bunch up a bunch of needles to the end of a stick or a rod. It could be bamboo, it could be metal, it could be horn, a bunch of different materials, and then you dip it in ink, and that's how, by continually stabbing it in a crude way, right? Stabbing it into the skin, that's how you get the tattoo, right? So I know you have obviously Tebori work. So my question is there a reason why you chose Tebori?
I'm a masochist and I hate money. Nah. So the truth is that I don't know really at what point the decision was made. My first, I knew that, so the first tattoo that I got was this half sleeve. And this was done by Horishun of the Horitoshi family in Ikebukuro. And I actually got that appointment through Horizakura, who would end up doing the rest of my bodysuit. But this is in 2007. And I was going to Japan for work. And so I knew I was like, I'm going to go to Japan. I was like, this is the chance, right? I was like, I'm going to do it. And so I made the arrangements, figured out how it was going to come up, how it was all going to come together. And obviously, their Horishun uses Tebori. So that was like what I wanted, you know what I mean? It was like, I want to go get a traditional tattoo in Japan. Like, this is the way they do it. And so that was sort of how I got there. The bodysuit and all that stuff came way later, but so I think that if I had to, put a finer point on it, it would be that I wanted a traditional Japanese tattoo, not only in its design, composition, color palette, etc., but also in its application.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, and I ask because, a lot of people, they're very, what's a nice way to put this, very contentious, maybe that's the word, maybe I'll use, about, machine versus Tebori and so on and so forth. They both have their merits. I know many Orishi or tattooers, they do outline by machine, right? And then they'll do the actual shading by Tebori. I think that's probably the modus operandi for most Orishi nowadays. Of course, there's outliers who do everything by Tebori, right? And, I guess I'll also call out that, at least in my experience, the machine hurts like hell, but Tebori is actually pretty relaxing. It's almost like a meditation, trance-like state that you get into when they're doing Tebori, and there's a particular sound that comes with the stabbing. Yeah. So
yeah,
cool.
No, it's definitely it definitely, like, there are parts where it's meditative, and then there are parts where it's just a white knuckle hellscape, and it's so funny too, as people talk about how some of the some of the like the spots that are obviously super painful or whatever, but that it's so much more painful with machine. And there's times where I'm getting tattooed and I'm just like, I can't imagine this being worse. And then there's other times, of course, like pretty much anything that's on like an external, like a limb, is like a cakewalk, like by comparison. But I just had my chest done, and who baby, I was I was not prepared.
So hilarious. Yeah, I think that's one of those things that only people who have gotten tattooed and certain body parts, if you will, can relate to, right? It's just the pain.
Yeah.
They'll know, right? Specific body parts just hit different.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And people often ask me too, like, because if people just see my arms or whatever, and they'll ask like, oh, like what was the most painful part, or did it hurt? Not realizing the extent to which I'm tattooed, and so I'll just be like, yeah, it was like when he was tattooing my ass, and they're just like, it's just like immediately just like and I was like, yeah, you would never think it, but like, man, that area, like you think it's so fleshy, but it was tough times.
Cool. In fact, you actually talked about it, and I was curious, but you mentioned, you went to get your, what was the right sleeve, the left sleeves?
Yeah, my right half sleeve. This is my right.
Your right half sleeve with Horishun and Ikebukuro and Tokyo in Japan. So, but I'm wondering, just how did you discover the Horitoshi family in the first place?
So I want to say, from my earliest recollection, it is Shad, actually, at Horitsuki Kage, because he was obviously a member of the family, but to be honest with you, I don't have a great memory for that time period specifically of my life, but like, as I recall, it was really like just that as you're sort of trying to find any little piece of information you can about Japanese tattoo, Horimono, like you keep seeing a few names pop up, right, of like the modern masters, right, and it's your Horiyoshi 3, it's Horitoshi, Horikashi, some of these guys that like have sort of been in it for a while, and so I want to say that it was like that sort of just general knowledge plus me having found Shad's website that like really pushed me towards that style. And it just, to me, it just screams, it's just a classic look. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that there's tons of other sort of classical designs that, don't necessarily encompass the exact composition of a Horitoshi tattoo. But for me, it just like, it's just what I gravitate towards.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. The Horitoshi family style is very peculiar. And, obviously it's his own style. He's developed it over the many years that he's been doing his thing. Similar Horishi with similar styles. I mean, like Horitoku, also in Tokyo, I believe. And then Horiyoshi II was actually very also similar to that. But it's a very specific look, right? It's a very heavy focus on the background and the wind bars and so on and so forth. It's just such a specific look. Obviously, I love it. I also do have Horitoshi family / Horizakura family work done on myself. But then, of course, that's not to take away from the many other styles. We had London Slate before here with the Waboripedia, the Figure Behind the Ink series. He follows more of the Taisho style era. Tattooing, the backgrounds are different effect too. It looks fantastic as well. You mentioned Horikashi, who we actually interviewed this week.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
And and he also has his own different style. You could argue actually that depending on region, you'll have sort of different general styles, right? The Kanto style and like the Tokyo and such area is going to be a little bit different from the Kansai style in like Western Japan. They have the Southern style and like the Kyushu region, right? And then, of course, within those regions, different masters will have their own, unique traits and things. That's very cool. That's very cool to hear. And in fact, you mentioned you started with Horitsuki Kage, a Shad, based out of Belgium. And that was sort of your entryway to the Horitoshi family. But then you also mentioned that Horizakura, who's the one who's done the bulk of the work on your body, which we're going to be taking a look at later, is the one who introduced you to Horishun, I think you said.
Yeah.
So how did you even meet Horizakura, actually?
Oh, so I didn't. It was, I cold called. He was at New York Adorned at the time, and I just cold called the shop, and because I was like, I got to talk to somebody. I was like, I speak no Japanese. And I was like, so I don't know how I'm going to do this. And again, we're talking about 2007, right? So like, I didn't even have a smartphone yet. So, I mean, it really like think about how much has changed since then. Yeah, so the only thing I could think of is just like, I know that this guy is a member of a Japanese tattoo family. He works at this shop. I'll call the shop and just ask somebody. It was like, it was just I was like, I was wondering if I could, speak with Horizakura about, getting like somebody that could tattoo me in Japan. And whoever was answering phones at Adorn, I never actually spoke to him. They were like, hang on a sec, I'll go ask him. And they went and asked and came back and with Tattoo Soul, and they gave me a phone number. And that was all I had.
That's awesome. That's interesting. That's like actually that tells a lot also about your personality. You're like, I got to figure out. Let me just call this guy, and maybe he can help me out understand more. And then what's funny is that, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was like, I feel like that's sort of the best path forward with a lot of questions and thoughts in the tattoo community at large, right? I deal with it all the time in the subreddit. The answer is almost always just go ask your tattooer, ask your tattoo artist. Like, and that it was the same. I mean, I wasn't doing it consciously at the time, but I was just like, what else? I don't have any other path forward. I don't know anybody, so call them.
That makes sense. That makes sense. What I was gonna say was that it's funny that he ended up being like your main Orishu, right?
Yeah.
So you went full circle there.
Yeah, no, I did. It's funny. And I never, I mean, it was a little bit of a winding road to get to where I'm at, but like, it was funny. It wasn't even a thought in my mind. I thought, I was like, oh, maybe I could get a tattoo from him someday, but I never thought it was going to be this.
So. Right. So let's see. I know that in the London Slate interview, we had a little hiccup. I think I'm going to blame the video recording software that we're using. I'm not going to even call it out, but maybe the frame is going to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop. Actually, no, I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to share. I'm going to start sharing. I'll do some after recording magic to at least see if we can fix it. But let me start by pulling. I have some of your pictures, right, of your bodysuit. You really do have a bodysuit, right?
Yeah.
And
doesn't look like it right now. from here up.
Let me start sharing. Where's that button? Share screen. And you let me know when you can see the...
Yeah, that's me.
Also work there. Hopefully nothing's blocking the picture. But basically, again, Jordan here has a bodysuit. Obviously, we can't capture everything with one picture, so we'll go section by section, if you will. Talking to Jordan offline, I came to learn that what we're looking at here is actually the main piece in the bodysuit. So I don't want to speak too much. Jordan, I'll hand it off to you if you want to walk us through what we're looking at and any thoughts you want to share.
Yeah, sure. So obviously this is Fudo Myoo, one of the protectors of Buddhism, and also called the immovable one, which is one of my favorite, like just sort of like notions about it. It's like, I love that, just feels strong, the immovable one. But yeah, so the way it's funny actually, because I first started with Horizakura, we started on my back piece, which, I'm sure we'll pivot to in a minute. And, we sort of did that. And the idea was, that I wanted to do the back piece, and then we would build the bodysuit out from there. And the Horizakura's process with the whole thing has been sort of interesting in the way he's been building the suit, but we kind of got to a point where we had finished the back piece, and he realized, like, I was just like, no, I was like, let's do the full suit. And because we were talking about going to my arms for after the back piece. And he's like, if we're going to do that, he's like, we start from the bottom, right? So then we started from the bottom, worked our way up. And by the time he sort of got up, and we had done my stomach, and I got this phoenix on my stomach, dragon on my back, water and fish. And he's like, your arm needs to be something powerful. He's like, the arm is going to tie it all together. That was sort of what his vision was for it. And so my initial, I'm a huge fan of just sort of nature, the outdoors, natural life, and mythical creatures as well. And so that was primarily what I had envisioned my bodysuit being composed of. I had originally said that I didn't want gods or people. And I'm talking about, this is like 7 years ago when we first started planning and working together. And so that was initially my point, but he said, he's like, I think Fudo on your arm is going to be it. And I was very skeptical about, like, not necessarily the imagery even, but that I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'4" and I don't have big arms. So I was just like, I mean, Fudo's such, like, usually Fudo's a back piece, right? You're going to put it on my arm. I was like, I don't know. Like, and it's the only time I've ever doubted him. And shame on me for ever having doubted. He took a marker. It was like at an appointment, he was working on my stomach, and he went like that, just like flicked the marker like all over my arm, and then pointed to the mirror. I was like, go look. And I went and looked, and he had like very crudely just like size, legs, sword, and then like fire around it. Like, I'm talking to like a 15 second sketch. Boom. Just rocked this thing out. And he was just like, go look. He's like, it'll fit. And I was just like, okay. I was like, I'm sorry. Whatever you say. That's fine. And so that was how actually, Fudo came to be on my arm. And I, one of the primary motivators for me in this artwork and this art form is because obviously I'm not Japanese, I'm not Buddhist, but the authenticity of the art, it being, I wanted Horizakura's bodysuit, right? I didn't want somebody else's bodysuit or somebody else's vision for what it would be. I didn't want my own vision for what it would be. I wanted the bodysuit that he wanted to give me, right? And it took a little bit for me to come to terms with the fact, but like, this was his design, like this is what it was for him, right? And so I put aside sort of what my ideas were for how I would look, and instead let it, sort of like the tattoo dictate what it needed to be. And that's how, Fudo ended up there. And I obviously I love it now. I mean, like, see, like I'm so proud to have it, and for that to sort of be the main theme of the suit. And you can see the Karura, sort of flame goes up, and that kind of comes, where am I? Comes up like over to here. Which I actually lost my own preview of myself, but I think it's like around here. And yeah, and so that's standing Fudo. He's standing on some rocks, and then on the inside of my forearm there is just some sort of like crashing water and and fire that kind of goes up the arm.
Well, awesome. You mentioned a bunch of things that I wanna pick on, but I'll start with just the tattoo, right? We see Fudo, like Jordan mentioned, just standing on rocks, right? As you go up, as it should be in traditional Japanese tattooing, of course, we see flames, we see clouds, right? So that's mainly the background in there. And then, of course, you have the flame phoenix, if you will, in there accompanying Fudo Myoo. And it's spectacular. Actually, I remember that I had been following your blog, Gaijink, for quite a bit. And of course, I was part of the Irezumi subreddit, but we hadn't actually talked. And I think perhaps the first time we actually interacted was I reached out because I saw this Fudo Myoo piece, and I was like, oh shit, it fits. It looks great, because I was thinking about it myself, right? I also, of course, I think most people really like the Fudo Myoo pieces, and somehow Horizakura works some magic to make it fit and make it look great, and looks great. So yeah, no, I'm super impressed. I'm super jealous in a way. I'm happy with my own sleeves, but I'm jealous in a way that it looks fantastic.
Wow. Yeah, I totally, thank you. I totally get the jealousy. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things. Every time I see a tattoo, I'm just like, man, I wish I had 8 bodies. Get them all tattooed with different stuff. You know what I mean? I love it all.
That's cool. All right, let's see what else we have in here. All right, this is actually the back piece. So actually, we started sort of in reverse. We started with I think the last item that's been outlined, right?
Yep.
The Fudo Myoo, and now we're at the beginning with the back. I'll let you walk us through the piece, and then I'll add my sprinkle of comments.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so obviously it's, my back piece is a flying dragon. We actually discussed this. You taught me a little bit about this. Is be either like Hou-Ou, or there's another term, I think, right?
But
For a flying dragon.
Yeah,
O-Ryu, right. And so yeah, and you know, this is one of those things that we got to this subject matter on. This was my first consultation with Shinji. Was on sort of like what it was going to be. He was, you know, kind of getting a feel for me a little bit, and like was going to just sort of design something for me. And I had asked. Shinji's favorite thing is to say no. He loves telling people no. You know, and obviously I say that jokingly and lovingly, but like it is like he has such a clear vision for the art for like not only, you know, like the rules, but like where you can break and shift and move the rules. You know, like he just has a very strong compass for that, right? And so I had asked originally for an octopus, and he was just like, he's like, well, he's like, you have koi. That's a freshwater tattoo. Octopus are from the sea. He's like, that's not going to work. And I was like, all right, yeah, that's fine. And then I had talked about, you know, Ryugyo, the koi dragon head, the fish, and he doesn't like. I think it's a personal taste thing. He doesn't care for having those large. He's like, I don't think that they look good in a, you know, a large for a back piece. And he suggested a dragon, you know, to pair with the koi, because at that point, obviously, the koi was the only other tattoo I had. And I love dragon imagery. It's like a classic, right? So like you can't go wrong with a dragon ever, in my opinion. But for myself, at that early stage, I had envisioned having something a little bit different and a little bit more unique for my back piece. And I told them, that's all I said. I was like, I like dragons. I was like, but something a little more unique or a little different would be awesome. And he asked if I wanted to do a dragon with wings. And in all of the like research and like I had never seen that tattooed before, not for a back piece. And so I was just like, yeah. I was like, well, let's do that. And so he designed it, and that's how he sort of came up with this. You know, and I the way he and I work together, I don't know if he does this with all his clients or not, but I didn't really see anything until the day of the tattoo, and he showed me, you know, the drawing was probably about yay big. And he sort of, and then had, you know, broken out, like the head was a stencil, I think. I'm pretty sure the rest of it was all drawn on, but I think like just the head was stenciled. Sorry, my cat just jumped off me. And so, yeah, so he basically we started out with just the head, and he sort of, you know, worked his way out from there. And then decide you have the tail coming down my right butt cheek, and then on the opposite cheek there's another koi splashing upwards, and then some fire around the dragon, cherry blossoms sort of throughout. And that's, I mean, pretty much the sum total of the design. I'm stoked on it. It's one of those things that like I'm really excited to see color. And it's also worth mentioning for if anybody's listening on audio, the dragon's black, right? So it's a black dragon and right now, because we're only doing the black and gray shading at the time, right now I haven't gone back for any color yet with Horizakura. So the wings are still uncolored, the belly of the dragon's uncolored, and none of the cherry blossoms are yet.
Well, and you know, you mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to call out, and one is actually that you approached it the traditional way, which is the Horishi decides what happens, right? I think nowadays a lot of people go in and demand what they want. Some Horishi are flexible, and they'll be like, fine, whatever you want, we'll do it. Some are a little bit more conservative, if you will, and they're like, no, that doesn't make sense. And they try to steer the client in the right direction, right? But then there's also the other approach where you just leave it to the Horishi to decide what to do. And, you know, I think probably 99% of the time you can't go wrong that way, unless, of course, the Horishi's inexperienced. That's a different story.
Right. For sure.
But the composition is going to come out amazing because he'll have a greater vision and he'll know what works and what doesn't. And that's what we're seeing here. You know, you mentioned that you were thinking about sea creatures, and he was like, no, that's not going to work, right? Another thing that maybe we could have touched on before, I don't know if you even thought about this one, but, you know, we're going to see it later, you have a phoenix in the front, you have this O-Ryu or Hiryu in the back, right? These are two very powerful creatures, right? They're like among the most powerful creatures. mythological creatures. And so if you got something very weak to complement these two pieces, then it would look a little bit off, right? You need
Yeah.
something powerful too. And so what's better than Fudo Myoo on the arm, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that made a lot of sense. Just hearing that, you said it, and I thought, okay, that's why he did it, right? And so that's
Yeah.
very cool. Let me see. I mean, this is awesome. This is a piece that you actually don't see much of, right? I think many people didn't even know this existed until now. They're seeing it or hearing about it, right? A dragon with wings, or a winged dragon, right? And so it's very refreshing to see somebody have it as a back piece. Obviously, it looks amazing. Shinji's skill here. I also wanted to call out something that's very a big part of the Horitoshi family style, and again, the focus on the backgrounds, and especially I've seen it with Shinji, the dynamism in the backgrounds. You can see the wind moving, right? And the waves and so on and so forth. That's very cool, because I think a lot of perhaps inexperienced tattooers, they might see these bars of black, and then that's what they'll recreate, and then it sort of doesn't make sense. It looks a little bit off, right? But then obviously here Shinji knows what he's doing, and you see the dynamism of the air, and it goes along with the piece, right? It's a flying dragon. There should be some dynamism in the piece. But I know you want to say something, so go ahead.
Well, yeah. So when I was just to your point about, the sort of the movement of the background and the inexperience of, the sort of some Horishi as they're sort of learning that. I'm not an expert, but I can tell if somebody knows what they're doing based on the background of a tattoo. It's the first thing I look at. I almost ignore whatever the main subject is. I'm like obsessed with background, and I obviously with the tattoo family that I signed up for, that it kind of makes sense probably, but to me it is the background is the difference between, there's lots of people that can tattoo an awesome dragon. I was like, but it is hard to make background that makes sense, that is simultaneously dynamic but stays in the background. You know what I mean? Like and I'm not really an artist. I do some artistic things, but I don't really consider myself an artist. But like to evaluate work like that, and to sort of see how the artist creates separation from the foreground of the background, but still maintains, like if you like when he, maybe there's a little inside baseball, but when he tattoos me, even if there's a main subject around, trying to think of a good example, but like probably like parts of Fudo, or even like there's some cherry blossoms here. When he was doing this, he drew over the cherry blossoms with the background. Like he plans it all out as if, even though it's behind, he still draws every bar, so everything makes sense. If you could connect every single bar on my back piece to another part of the like the movement is consistent. You know what I mean? And I could spot like bad tattoo from a mile away if the background's not right. It's just one of those things that sticks out to me. And I love, sort of that style, and that style of tattoo, and just like what it does for the overall piece.
Yeah, and that's on point, because in fact there's many masters, right, Horishi, who actually say precisely that, right? Anybody can draw a pretty figure, but show me the backgrounds, right? It's in the backgrounds that you can tell if somebody knows what they're doing. And by the way, maybe I'll go back to a previous comment. I know we've been talking about inexperienced Horishi, but definitely by that I don't mean anybody who's starting out or maybe venturing into Wabori, because I've seen some people who are venturing into Wabori from more traditional Americana style tattoos, and they get the backgrounds. Like, in fact, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, I saw somebody doing waves, and it was just amazing how he actually nailed, okay, that's how you're supposed to do it, right? This is the background. These are waves. They're supposed to be dynamic. It's not just flat in there, that doesn't make sense. So for sure, not meaning to bash people new to the craft of Wabori at all. It's just making a distinction between good and bad backgrounds, right? Which is very important, especially in Wabori, right? I think you could argue, this is not the main point, right? But you could make the argument that one of the main components of Wabori is the background. right? That's what makes it
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
special.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like as to what I was speaking to earlier about how you have this, style of tattoo that's designed to cover huge portions of the body. That's not just because like the subject matter is big. I mean, if the classic, like that 3 horses, like American Flash, ships, the cross, like that stone cross, like all those could be tattooed huge. It doesn't have anything to do with like the design. You can make anything big, but the background, the way it wraps around your body parts and fits your form, that's what makes Japanese tattoos so uniquely tailored to being huge, right? And that, like, I didn't know it at the time, of course. I didn't understand how important background was until I had been getting tattooed for a long time, a few years probably, and then I'm looking at all these different things, and it started to sink in that, like, oh, it's like, this is why it matters so much. This is why it's like powerful.
So all right, let's move along here. Let's see what else we have in here. Boom. Okay, we have the front here. Jordan, I'll let you step out.
Cool. Yeah. So this is my front piece, front of my torso, and on the my right, left side of the picture, you can see the half sleeve that Horishun did. And this picture was actually taken last night, so this is very recent. If you're watching this anytime after this gets posted, or close to when this gets posted, I should say. But yeah, so that's a half sleeve. You can see there's a bonji sort of on my chest plate, and then opposite that is some cherry blossoms, which I'll come back to in a sec. And then the bulk of my stomach is a phoenix. This is the Hokusai phoenix that was tattooed or is painted on the ceiling of, I believe, the Zenkoji temple. But I always mix it up. I think that might be wrong. I would have to look up which temple it was. I always, Zenkoji is one that I visited, but I don't know if that's the right one. But it's the way that we got to that subject matter for my stomach is a story in and of itself. But in terms of just sticking with the tattoo for now, the phoenix kind of wraps around like my whole stomach and kind of comes under my belly. Even and I just sort of love the way it sort of like fits like the whole shape of my body. And then you can see this my torso is a great torso, and sort of my ribs are great examples of what I was talking about before about how much I love sort of the movement of background, because there's tons of it here. There's sort of a sort of a whirlwind that goes around my left nipple, and then under my, I don't know. I never remember because I'm looking in mirrors. I don't. So my sides are flipped, but my sides, like, I have like swirls as well, and this like sort of dynamic movement, and it's kind of maybe stupid to some people, but like it's one of my favorite parts of my tattoo is actually this little section, like almost in my armpit. And like people, like you get these huge tattoos all over your body, these big dragons and everything, and I'm just like, yeah, but look at this little piece of wind right here. This is my favorite. Yeah, so there's lots of movement here. And then, as I said, earlier, I want to talk about these cherry blossoms. The thing that I love about the cherry blossoms here, and this is probably not something that's immediately apparent to most clients. Many tattooers would probably notice, but so you could pretty clearly see, like, a lot of people, and as you yourself have shown, have the hike chest plate, right? That's built off of a sleeve. Usually kind of comes around on the chest like this, right? And it's usually pretty obvious when somebody has started with 2 hike and the sleeves hike, and then expanded to a torso or a munawari, because there's going to be like some connecting lines to that sort of like extend off of that to reincorporate that work, right? What's interesting to me about that sort of cluster of cherry blossoms that's on the left side of my chest is that it's off center. Like, it's not centered on the hike the way like people tend to love that symmetry, that perfectly mirrored thing. And it doesn't do that. I have a bonji here, and then my cherry blossoms are like off to the side, right? And it creates this like, it's like a, I don't even know like what the term would be for it. I'm sure that there's probably a term for it, but it's like this like sort of like harmony created by not having it perfectly symmetrical. Like, it looks more natural to me. And it's something that could only be achieved by the fact that I didn't have a hike there when we started all this, right? He was able to build right from the sleeve, knowing that he was going to go through my whole torso. He didn't have to think about stopping the sleeve at the hike. He was able to, sort of bring it all down in it. That, it's seeing that my torso come together has been huge for me. It's like, I don't know why. Every part of my body, it feels like I spent so long having like my legs tattooed and my back. There's stuff you can't see, probably 3 seasons out of the year. I'm wearing pants all the time. So you're getting tattooed. Nobody sees it. You don't see it, it's so like, but now like when I look in the mirror, like I see it, and it just like seeing it all come together has been an incredible feeling.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. Like you were mentioning, right? The movement, that this is like a prime example of movement mastery, if you will, and you see it all throughout. Like you mentioned the chest, right? You can even see it in the shoulders, in the obliques area, right? The sides of the torso, in there. Some of your legs we can see. I think we'll have another picture where we can see it in more detail, right? But you can see the movement in there. Yeah, it looks fantastic. And you were mentioning about the imperfection of the beauty of imperfection. Maybe one of the terms. This is one of the terms. There might be other terms, but wabi-sabi is the term of the imperfection and beauty and imperfection, right? I know that Kiku, right? Kiku Punk in New York City.
Wabi-sabi, baby.
He's mentioning wabi-sabi, right? So, it looks fantastic. It looks natural, right? Because in the natural world, not everything is perfectly symmetric. So, no, this looks fantastic. I also love how it's the Hokusai inspired phoenix. Obviously, Hokusai knew what he was doing when he painted that, and it looks fantastic in tattoos as well. As is the case for most Japanese paintings and ukiyo-e and so on and so forth, right? They translate very well into tattoos. I just love this. I don't think I have that much to add other than it looks obviously spectacular. You can also see, actually, I'll add something else that I think, and maybe it's just the style, right? There's many different styles or many different tastes, but one of the styles is just bunching a bunch of stuff together, putting a lot of stuff together, right? And just a lot of figures and just putting as much as they can into the body, right? But here we see you don't need to do that for things to look good. In fact, that's actually, I could argue, one of the Horitoshi family points, right? The simplicity sounds a little bit crude, but just the simplicity of it is what makes it so great, right? And here we see, you could say, hey, it's just a phoenix, right? You do have the sakura as well, right? But the main piece is obviously the phoenix. It looks great. You don't need to put something else on your chest to fill it up or anything. It looks great just the way it is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. It's that wabi-sabi, it's that simplicity, it's keeping things like, and even the idea of like simplicity through like the types of subject matter, right? Like you can have lots of you can have lots of drag, like very, like it's like a 7 dragon bodysuit or a 9 dragon bodysuit, right? Like obviously that's incredibly packed full of main subject, but it's simple in that it's all dragons, right? And I remember one of the first things that Shinji told me when we were getting started, we were talking about other stuff, and it's like, well, I love, the natural world, so turtles and frogs and fish and whatever and snakes, and he's like, Carrie, he's like, you don't want to look like a zoo. So that was sort of when I started sort of peeling back like the amount of things that I would have in my bodysuit, right? It's mostly fish, dragon, phoenix, turtle. It's pretty much it, right? I have some Hojo jewels around, but that's pretty much it. And that simplicity of like not having a lot of stuff, not having it all packed into one area, but also just broadly not having a lot of different things everywhere, is something that it's a style that I gravitate towards. I am generally, I try to be a little bit more like to each his or her own. Whatever you want to do for your tattoo, that's fine. If you find somebody that is willing to apply it safely, Godspeed, good luck. It's fine. But for me personally, for what I like, the stuff I find most interesting to look at, its background movement, its simplicity, it's the best.
Can't argue with that. All right, let's move along here. Let's see what we have next. All right, Jordan's butt cheeks in here, but actually some pretty interesting pieces that you can talk about too. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So so obviously this is this basically picks up from where that back piece photo ended, right? So I have the dragon's tail on my right butt cheek. Then you can see one koi coming up the left side there, and then on my left leg, there's basically from below the knee, I have 3 goldfish, and they're sort of just in like different like sort of orientations, but it's really just cherry blossoms, water, and goldfish. Pretty straightforward, but classic design. Kingyo or one of those things that I just sort of grew to love as I like, and it was like when he told me this was like a great example actually. It's something like obviously koi that made total sense to me, being part of the back piece, but the goldfish were the first limb that we started to work on after he was just like, I'm going to start from the bottom and work up. He's just like, for this leg, he's like goldfish, and I was just like, goldfish. Like, all right, man, that's like whatever you say, goldfish, I guess. And then like as he's like putting them on there, it's like each one kind of looks like they have like a little bit of a different face, a little different personality, and I'm just like, and I love it, like it's you just sort of grow to appreciate it. And now like obviously Horitoshi 3's got a lot of goldfish in his bodysuit that's pretty well known, pretty famous, and easy to find photos of if anybody wants to. But like now when I love when I see goldfish in a bodysuit. It just like, I don't know, there's something sort of like elegant but also whimsical about it. I don't know. And so yeah, so he added the goldfish for that leg. And then actually this is also a really good example of what I was speaking to earlier about, where you can kind of see pretty clear connecting lines when somebody's extending background. So you can see just under that koi on my left leg there's some pretty straight, or I mean they're sort of going diagonal, but they're clearly defined water lines there, and that's where the the back piece ended, right? When he first did my back piece, there was, it was sort of, I don't know if it was like necessarily a miscommunication or just like I don't know how, but like I wanted to start with my back piece, but I had mentioned, and I think that I just wasn't clear about it, which is a great lesson too for everybody listening, is be very clear. Is that I had conceived that I wanted to do a full bodysuit, but I was nervous about the time and financial commitment, so I said like, let's just start with the back piece. So he defined all the edges of it as like almost a kame no ko, back piece that we were going to add sleeves to, I guess, it was sort of his thinking. And then so once we were, I was like, let's do full sleeves, full bodysuit, the whole 9. And he's just like, start from the bottom. So you can see where he had to basically connect that back piece. So there's like the waves that come up above the back of my knee. That's what he added to extend that leg downward. But again, you can still kind of trace all the lines, right? From the existing tattoo, the existing back piece, you can trace those lines into the rest of the tattoo, right? So it stays consistent, even though it was added. And then the right leg is a dragon turtle. The dragon head's got a cluster of jewels on his back, some rocks and moss and stuff like that, looking super cool, super old. That's one of those things that I kind of love, because like it's almost camouflaged. You can't really tell that it's a turtle unless you see my leg rotate, because like just straight up from the back, it just looks like rocks and moss, right? Like you can see the head underneath, but like it's like the legs and stuff like that are sort of are wrapped around my leg or on the sides. So it's not immediately apparent necessarily that there's like a creature there until you look at it. And also it's uncolored at the moment. So once it's colored in, it probably will pop a little bit more, but I really like that. And that the turtle is something that we didn't have a lot of like information on. And interestingly, the temple where I found the Hakusai painting Hou-Ou staring in 8 directions, which I should have mentioned that. That's the name of the painting that my stomach is based on, is Hou-Ou staring in 8 directions. And it's on the ceiling of this temple. At the sort of entryway to the like altar area in the temple, on the corners is like, it's like all ornately carved with these different, like monks or Buddhas. And then there's, or, attendants or whatever. And then there's 2 dragon turtles on the corners, which at the time I already had the dragon turtle on my leg. And I with just absolutely busted Japanese, tried to ask these ladies that were at the front desk, like, what are these turtles? Like, what can you tell me about these turtles? And she pulled out this book that was just this massive tome that like had everything that was in that building like organized in it. It was really, really cool. I'd never seen anything like it, but it's literally like a book about the temple. And she starts like flipping through, and she finds like the carvings from like the altar area, and but there was nothing in there about the turtles. And so it's one of those things that like I've heard like a couple different names for the turtle, but like I don't know much about it more beyond the fact that they're just sort of like a longevity, good luck type thing. Or at least that's my understanding on it. But Jun, I would be happy if you're familiar. I would be happy to hear your take on that.
Yeah, sure. All right, so let's again, a bunch of your bodies is just so awesome that there's many things to talk about it. I'll start actually with the fact that you started with Hikai with I think it was the left right Horishun, the Hikai, and then you with Shinji with Horizakura, you started with Kame no Ko, the turtle back style tattoo, right? And then he masterfully connected both the Hikai and the Kame no Ko pieces right into this great looking bodysuit. So I just wanted to mention again just the mastery of Horizakura there and connecting the pieces. I do like a lot the goldfish. I also like goldfish a lot right now. They're supposed to symbolize good luck. You don't see them that much, right? You mentioned Horitoshi 3, right? For sure, he has some of those. I think in some of the older Japanese books that perhaps we'll touch here in Waboripedia, there are some bodysuits that are just or mostly goldfish, and it looks fantastic. I love it. I wouldn't have it myself, but I just love looking at it. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, it's very, very cool to see that the inclusion of the goldfish there, and again, just mixing with the whole bodysuit. Just going to the turtle. So one of the names for this turtle, right? And without talking about Shinji, I can't be 100% certain that's what he was aiming for, right? But there's this Minogame. So Minogame is one of the turtles. And of course, they do represent the longevity, like you mentioned. They're supposed to live for thousands of years. There's a folktale or a story around this guy called Urashima Taro. And so I'm not going to recount the whole story here. In fact, I might make a post in the Instagram or even mention it in the book. But basically, this guy saves a turtle, and skipping a bunch of the story in here, he ends up taking him back to the Dragon Palace at the bottom of the ocean, and he's rewarded for it, right? Because it turns out there was a link between the turtle and the Dragon King in there. So it is a part of obviously of Japanese folklore. You also see it obviously in Chinese mythology as well, as of course a lot of Japanese folklore itself is inspired by Chinese influence, but probably this is a Minogame, and of course there's stories out there. We can talk offline about it. They do symbolize longevity and good fortune, right, which you already knew. And it's very cool to see turtles, right, whether it's the Minogame or Genbu. Genbu is another one. Obviously, we're not talking about it. You don't have it here, right? But Genbu is another turtle with a snake wrapped around, right?
That was one of the concepts I came to late in my research, that like I thought like it would have been awesome to do a Four Guardians themed thing, with Genbu and the white tiger, because there was a period of time where Shinji considered putting a white tiger on my chest, like just like the whole thing, just a giant white tiger. was one of the many ideas that kind of flew around. And that led me to think, white tiger, Genbu's black, but then, I mean, the rest of my body had already sort of been predetermined, like it wasn't set up for that, but it's such an awesome idea. I love Genbu.
Awesome. All right. I think we're going to stop here with the sharing of your awesome bodysuit here. Let's just go back to looking at the person here in the screen. So actually just continuing relating about your journey, because it's been a journey, right? And you mentioned that it's a financial commitment for sure. It's a huge time commitment, right? I think I mentioned earlier that I found out about you even before I found out about the Reddit, the Itazumi subreddit, because of your blog, right? Gaijink blog, where you're documenting your journey. And so my question is just, what motivated you to just stand up a blog and document the whole thing?
So like I had mentioned earlier, where I don't have the best memory for that sort of early 2000s when I was planning all this, it's because the primary reason is because I have a terrible memory. And I was like, if this is something that I'm going to do, for myself, I want to just have cataloged, a few things that happen. Obviously I'm not going to, it's not a like a journal, right? It's not a newspaper. I'm not going to like divulge like personal things that he and I discuss, because I have the mind that it is still a public facing thing. So, but I did want to at least keep track of the progress and things that would be appropriate to share. There are some times when I do sort of wish that I had reserved just some posts that I didn't make public, that I just kept private, to just, keep track of some of the things that we've discussed. But, I mean, it's been 7 years. It's like any relationship that you develop with a person. It's just like, a thing that's sort of just kind of grown, and you don't have journals about your time with your friends. You know what I mean? Like it'd be kind of weird, in fact. Yeah. So like, it's fine. I kind of came around to like, it's like fine that, that has sort of gone unsaid or unrecorded, but it really was just about seeing it change over time. And I like sort of like collecting the books, I wanted, like, I'm fairly obsessed with tattoos, if it wasn't obvious, like, and not just Japanese tattoos, even like the more I learn about, other tattoo forms, I'm just like, I love it all. And I'm interested in it. If you see me on the street, show me your tattoo. I don't even care what it is. I just want to see it, and I'll talk to you about it. And the collecting books, the blog, are all ways for me to just engage with tattooing when I'm not being tattooed, right? And Shinji maintains a private studio. I do not get the walk-in experience that some people get when they're getting tattooed. There's no other people getting tattooed with me, so that sort of lively, community nature has always sort of been absent in my own tattoo experience. And so I sort of try to recreate it by, at the blog, being a moderator on the subreddit. It's like my way to like talk to people. If I think I have the ability to, I visit tattoo shops just to say hello, and I'll try to, buy t-shirts or prints or whatever I can to support them. Because obviously I'm not going to get tattooed. And it's just, and I think, sometimes it pays, like they are happy to see me, because not a lot of people get to see Shinji's work in person. And I'm happy to share it. So it's a little bit of like a commodity where I can sort of show you, it's like, yeah, by all means, take a look at what he's done. If it gives you some sort of inspiration, I'm just happy to be in your tattoo shop and meet you guys and gals and say what's up, So, I don't even remember the question, how we got there, but it was, what did you ask me?
No, just
totally
about
derailed.
your documenting your journey. And
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so so all that's to say is like all that stuff, the collecting books, going to visit tattoo shops, the blog, the subreddit, it's all about just being able to engage with tattooing when I'm not being tattooed.
Well, and I think a lot of people definitely appreciate, like I said, I can't even remember when I discovered, a long time ago. That's all I can say. Your blog, but it was one of the first times that I saw a non-Japanese person. Obviously, the title of the blog is Gaijink, right? And Gaijin is like a foreigner in Japanese, right? And then you have the ink in there, right? And it's a little play of words.
That's right.
But I think it was one of the first times, if not the first time, that I saw a non-Japanese person with Japanese style tattoos or Wabori, and it just looks amazing. I constantly referred back to it myself right in the past, and so for sure I do want you to keep sharing with the world what your progress and all the cool stuff that you're doing. But actually, let's take a little shift here, get a little bit more philosophical, and maybe the answer to the
boy.
question I'm about to ask is no, nothing. But how have your tattoos actually changed you or impacted you?
It's a fair question, and it's not out of everything that we sort of discussed in the lead up to this is the one thing that I was not really sure how I would answer. I didn't have it wasn't something that it sort of immediately comes to mind. But there's the obvious, the stuff you can easily quantify, time and money. Obviously it's been a tremendous commitment. It's a lesson in patience, and so I've always been sort of a fairly patient person, but to it's on another level to be getting a tattoo 2 hours at a time, and to just see people that are just like check out my sleeve, we did it in 2 days. Just like it's like I'm and so I mean in terms of like probably like a personal development thing, like a patience, slow progress, that kind of thing, the focus on the goal has sort of helped me. I would say like it sort of teaches you lessons about how to live in other areas of your life, right? But that's like the physical, planning for the financial commitment, planning for the time, planning for like pursuing the goal, all that stuff, fairly easy to quantify, not so esoteric, I think. The more philosophical or more sort of metaphysical aspect of getting the tattoo has been, say life-changing might be a little too dramatic, but like it is the realization of something that has been inside me for as far as I can tell my whole life, right? And from the very beginning, I was raised in a pretty traditionally Christian religious home where tattooing, like my parents are super chill people. I have a great relationship with them, so this is not like an indictment. But tattoos were sort of a frowned upon thing, right? I didn't like. I got my half sleeve in Japan, and they were fine. Like my mom like freaked out briefly, asking me how big it was. She's like, "Is it as big as your hand?" It's like, "It's way bigger." But so I was sort of raised in this environment where it was like not necessarily something you were supposed to do, but I couldn't get away from it. Like it was just like it was something that like I wanted to do, and it was like in my head I was just like, oh, it's like just maybe 2 half sleeves, that'll be enough. Maybe something else small, and that'll be it. And then like once I started, like it was like sort of like opening up the floodgates, not in the sense of like, oh, I'm like people always say like I'm addicted to it. So it's just like, no, it's like when I got that first tattoo, I gave myself permission to be tattooed despite the way I was raised. And once I had given myself that permission to sort of like live the way I wanted to live, to have my body be the way I wanted my body to be, that was it. And then I was just like, I will realize the full breadth and width of this thing that's inside me, and I will get as tattooed as I can be reasonably, and so that's what it's become. It is, and it's a pretty well worn thing to say that like the tattoos are just exposing what was underneath your skin all along, kind of thing. Like that is a pretty common thing to say, but people use these sorts of like cliche phrases because at some level they're applicable, right? And it is sort of the way I feel broadly. It's I mean it's everything to me, in a lot of ways.
Well, no, for sure. In fact, I know you didn't mention it, but just the commitment, the discipline, the consistency. You mentioned 7+ years, right? I don't know if you noticed it or not, but that's discipline and consistency right there, right? I'm sure it carries over to other areas of your life. I mean, that by itself, even without looking at your tattoo, I think that's commendable already, right? Such a long journey and you're still at it, right? And I know that you barely miss days, right? And then you might agonize a little bit when you do, right? So I think it's very cool. Sometimes it does impact us in ways that we don't even notice, right? And it's not like, oh my God, now my life is all about tattoos, right? But it does have some little changes or impacts that build up, right, and make you a little bit better. So cool.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure.
So actually, I do have one more question for you, and this whole again, we pre-scripted some questions to drive the conversation, and then of course, if you have other stuff you want to talk about, for sure, let's do it. But the last question I have, and that I'm asking everybody that I have in here, whether they're a Horishi or a collector like yourself, right, is if you have a favorite subject or theme.
Yeah, that's you know, that's like an I love all my children equally type thing. You know, it's so hard to pick. You know, like I said before, I wish I had 5 bodies, 8 bodies, 10 bodies. I could get different bodysuits, you know. Because I love the I love the, like, you could think of like subject, like what's your favorite subject matter? Well, that could, you know, for some people it would just be like, you know, a dragon, right? Or a, you know, a person from the Suikoden. Like it's, and that subject matter could be anywhere on your body in one piece, and like, this is my favorite, see it. But like for me, what I find that I really gravitate toward is the full bodysuit theme, like, you know what I mean, like the whole theme, right? So Sakura Fubuki is one of my favorites. I love, like, and this goes back to like sort of that like understanding of like how important background is for me and how dynamic it can be, how much like sort of grace and movement, power, and, you know, all kinds of things can just be shown just by background movement. And as I sort of like learned that, realized that, I started to understand Sakura Fubuki more. And like when you see, like, there's a few guys that I've seen tattooed with a full bodysuit of just Sakura Fubuki, and it's just like the courage you have to just like stick to that. Like, you want to talk about simpleness, like simplicity and emptiness, you know, like, I mean, that's it, right? It's the strength of this design with no main theme, but like the thing itself, like it is its own theme, but it in a way that it's nothing, like it's incredible to me, you know. So I for a lot of reasons, I would probably say that that's my favorite, and I don't know if like where that would land in like the, you know, top 10 most commonly loved themes, you know, among people. I don't really know, but for me, I would say like anything, like, you know, because I know that there's other like Kikusui, I think, is like Kiku and water, and you can do full bodysuits. That you don't see that very often, where it's just that in the way that you see Sakura Fubuki. But I would love to see more of that. You know, any of those sort of, you know, all background and flowers, it's my sweet spot.
Yeah, and you know, when you look back at the traditional tattoos, obviously you had mythological creatures, right? Dragons. We're talking about dragons, phoenixes, Tarajishi. You also have the Suikoden tattoos in the Edo period that were extremely popular, right? Still very, very popular, right? But then, of course, if you ask maybe somebody who doesn't know that much about Japanese tattooing, but they know a little bit, they might just think about flower tattoos, right? Sakura Fubuki, the peonies, right? Botan Shirashi, or the chrysanthemum that you mentioned, right? The Kikosui.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're popular because they're fantastic, right? And again, the simplicity. Simple doesn't mean bad, right? Sometimes simple is just an expression of mastery, and it looks so fantastic. So I would have to agree. In fact, I'll encourage a little plug here for the Waboripedia Instagram. But we did post recently Sakura Fubuki picture by, I think it was Honda Tsuyoshi, and it looks fantastic, right? You can see how with just the sakura, right, the cherry blossoms and the winds and clouds, just those patterns look fantastic, right? The dynamism and such of just those elements looks so great. So I know we've been talking for quite a bit here. We didn't really have a set amount of time, but I know it's already it's been a little bit. I'll open it up to you if there's anything you want to chat about, any shout outs you want to give out, or anything of the sort.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, you know, first of all, you know, thanks again for, you know, having me. As a, you know, based on just the content that, you know, Waboripedia has been putting out and the type of people that you've been interviewing. I mean, just by the company alone, I'm very honored to have been invited to talk with you here, and to share a little bit about my story and my tattoo. Like I said, the blog, the Instagram, everything. It's just because I love this stuff. So any chance that I have to talk about it, with other people that are into it, that's great. And I relish and cherish those opportunities. So this has been great. In terms of plugs for myself, I would say Gaijink, as we mentioned earlier, is my blog. It's GAIJINK.com, and that's if you want to follow along, that's where you can find me. I post generally after every appointment. If you're watching this recently from its posting date, I just put up a blog post that covers like three appointments, actually, because I was taking pictures, but I was pretty behind on posting updates, so I just included it all into one mega post, so you can see sort of a lot of the progress on my chest and how Horizakura has built the chest piece up over time. And then on Instagram, I'm the Universal Remonster. That's an Aqua Teen Hunger Force reference for those of you in the know, and it's been my identity on the internet since the early 2000s, so there's no changing it now. It is who I am, for better or for worse. People think of the universal remote control. And then, I think that's about it. Come over to the Aria Razumi on Reddit. We got a great community over there, people that love tattoos. Your neo-traditional, your new school, your whatever, it's all allowed. Just be cool. Don't talk about people's bodies. and you will stay unmoderated. But yeah, man, John, thank you so much again, man. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am of, Waboripedia, and the content you've been putting out is incredible. Not only the accessibility of one of the greatest things that's or one of the greatest challenges, I should say, is of a person that's into this, is how much of the information is gated off by language. And I know you and I have talked about this privately as well, but it's really difficult to find reliable, accurate information about a lot of the content, a lot of this stuff, and not for any other reason than just to be interested in it, to read about it. It's still hard. There's so much cultural history, things that are unwritten that go into, why things are the way they are, and why they look a certain way. And, I have such a respect for it that I try to really speak very carefully about the subject matter, because I know that I'm not an expert. I know that I'm not Japanese or Buddhist. I wasn't raised in these traditions or these cultures. For me, it's really about the tattooing, right? And then I love the style of tattooing, and I appreciate the culture and everything that goes with it. So I want to make sure that it's right, but that's why I let Horizakura guide the whole thing, right? Because he will make it right. I don't need to be right. But man, the stuff that you put out, that the information, the sort of just the rundowns of these different Suikoden heroes and the themes and all the history, it's so invaluable for people that don't speak Japanese, man. And then that's not even touching the Horishi interviews that you've been doing, that you're getting FaceTime or text time with some of these great artists and tattooers and of our modern time, man. It's really incredible. I'm not only appreciative to be included, but I'm extremely proud of the work you've been doing, man. It's awesome to see, and I'll sing it from the mountaintop.
Thank you very much for the nice words, and of course for joining. Like I said, I've been following you for a long time. You're part of the Waboripedia family, obviously, longtime supporter of all things Wabori. I do hope to see more of you for sure. We're going to be having you here, I think, in the future. I definitely want to have you again and keep talking to you and showing the world what an awesome person you are, right, on your tattoos and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, my man. Really appreciate everything you do, sharing your journey, and of course, jumping in here and talking with us. So thank you very much, and until next time.
Thanks, Jeff.
If you would like to learn more about the world of traditional Japanese tattooing, follow the Waboripedia Instagram page, hit like and subscribe in the YouTube and Spotify channels, and stay tuned for the meanings and stories behind Japanese tattooing, Horishi interviews, and more.